In the late 1960s, a British historian once wrote that the tragedy in Palestine is not just a local one, but it is a tragedy for the world because it is an injustice that is a menace to the world's peace. A few decades on, and the Palestinian cause has gained a lot of support around the world, but the plight of the Palestinians continues. I'm here in the north of Ireland to find out what Palestine means to the Irish people and what they are doing to help the Palestinian cause.
Boycott is really good in Castle Court. Thank you. Hi folks, can I give you a wee leaflet? We're just informing people what's going on in Castle Court. Thank you very much.
Fund apartheid, boycott is really good.
Boycott is really good in Castle Court. We're doing a boycott against the Dead Sea stalls in Castle Court. They're selling illegally stolen minerals from the West Bank of Palestine. It's in a settlement which is illegal. Can I give you a wee leaflet folks? Boycott is really good. We've been here for about 14 months now. We've had a twice a week boycott. In that space of time, we probably handed out about 60,000 flyers. Everybody's volunteering.
Fund apartheid, boycott is really good. Support the people of Palestine.
Want people with the hand creams? Basically all comes from a war zone. Every 3 days, one Palestinian child is getting killed, and in there, they're selling products that fulfills that same military, and they don't give a damn, and they know exactly what's going on.
Have you faced any trouble?
Yeah, there's been confrontation. We've had confrontation with staff coming out and getting angry at us because we're hurting their profits, which is always a good sign. I'm happy for that confrontation. I'd be more concerned if they weren't annoyed. So yeah, we've had that confrontation, but generally the reception in Belfast is pretty good. Can I give you a wee leaflet, folks? We're just asking people to boycott is really good in Castle Court.
So what makes you come out every few hours, every Sunday and then every Wednesday to come out and leaflet? What motivates you?
Well, I've been to the West Bank. I've been to these disgusting illegal settlements. I've seen the segregation. I've seen the apartheid firsthand, and to know that their products are getting sold in my city, to come back here and see the deprivation that they're living under, and the profits come from here supporting that, it's absolutely disgusting. I can't stand for that to be going on in my own city and do nothing about it. It's, you know, how could you sleep?
Pro-Palestine activity is not only confined to the streets of Ireland, but is also visible across councils and town halls. Many politicians in Ireland sympathise with the Palestinian cause, including some who are active campaigners.
In Ireland we play hurling. This year is the home of the 2012 All-Ireland champions, so this wee parish won the whole All-Ireland.
Podrick McShane is a local councillor in the Moyle district of the town of Ballycastle. He's hosting a delegation of Palestinian youth from the Ida refugee camp in the West Bank who are on a tour of the north of Ireland. In 2010, Podrick was part of the Viva Palestina humanitarian aid convoy to Gaza, where he helped send medical supplies. He later succeeded in creating a twinning agreement between Moyle District and the municipality of Gaza, despite facing strong opposition from pro-Israeli members of the council.
We had to go through a legal process of some 18 months. That involved talks with MA5 was involved, the Home Office, the Foreign Office, the PSNI, and nobody could find fault with our process. Our process and our friendship is based in culture and based in mutual respect.
Trade unionism plays a significant part in Irish politics. I went to see the regional secretary of Unison, one of the largest trade unions in Ireland, with a membership of 40,000 people. In 2007, Patricia visited Palestine and the occupied territories as part of a high-level delegation from Ireland. The findings of the trip were published in this report.
Now, we were left in no doubt that we were watching the complete denial of human rights to an entire people, and that we were looking at apartheid on a very severe level in terms of the state of Israel itself, the injustices in the West Bank and in Gaza.
You're wearing a Palestinian badge.
I am.
Why Palestine and not any other country?
Well, I suppose we, as a trade unionist, I'm involved in global solidarity and supporting workers in particular in many struggles across the world. A big priority for me is the struggle of women across this globe. I mean, violence against women has just hit epidemic proportions on the planet. And I am involved in other issues, most recently with the Colombian peace process. But there is no doubt in my mind that the major issue that needs to be solved is the plight of the Palestinian people and peace in the Middle East. And we will not live on a safe planet until there is peace in the Middle East. Now that really means that the West is responsible for what's happening.
How do you find Ireland and Irish people towards Palestine generally?
In general, the Irish people are very supportive because they can see the link in their struggle against the British Empire with the Palestinian struggle against the British Empire and Zionism, which is a product of the British Empire.
The British occupation of Ireland stems back over 800 years. Since that time, the Irish people have been locked in a struggle to regain independence. In the 1920s, Britain partitioned Ireland and held on to most of the north, now called Northern Ireland.
Well, the course of my life was soon altered in 1969 when we rose and demanded our civil rights.
The Irish residents of British-ruled Northern Ireland were frequently discriminated against, causing serious social and economic depression to the mainly Catholic population. It was a major factor that led to the Troubles.
I think it was around 5 o'clock, and it was saying on the news that people had died in Derry. They were saying there's 3 dead and then there's 5 dead. One of my friends from where I lived, she said, your brother Willie, Kate, has been shot dead. And she says, your father was shot too, but he's still living. And I just, I thought my world was going to end. I didn't know. I thought it was a nightmare, just gone into a nightmare of some sort.
These are the Nash sisters. Their brother was one of several citizens shot dead by the British Army in the city of Derry on a fateful day in 1972, known as Bloody Sunday. What started as a peaceful march ended in a massacre. Until this day, the families of the murdered victims have not received full justice. Bloody Sunday is commemorated every January in the city of Derry. This march was in 2009, right after Israel's massacre of Gaza. The whole town waved Palestinian flags.
We actually want the Bloody Sunday March to become an icon, to be actually known throughout the world as something that stands for the little people, for people who deserve justice, who deserve peace. Palestine is a persecuted people, the same as the Irish, In Palestine, they have suffered like us, but in Palestine, a much larger scale. It's daily, weekly, about the horrors that are befalling the people of the Gaza Strip. I really don't believe that you can just let people bomb or kill you or shoot your children, your brothers and sisters, and not fight back, But I see it very much, and I don't know why the world lets it happen, I see it very much as a David and Goliath battle.
It's Israel that are the terrorists. Just the same way as in Derry in 1972, it was the British Army that were the terrorists.
150 years ago, during the famine which Ireland faced, the Ottoman Empire tried to help the Irish people in sending food and money, which the British blocked. It's exactly like the Israeli blockade around Gaza. There is similarities, and the people, when they dig deep in the history, they see the connections and the link of the people standing to fight the same enemy.
So farewell to the streets of old Belfast, the place I was born. Farewell to my friends and brave.
The Troubles ended in the 1990s after a peace agreement was made The region is much calmer now, but tensions still exist.
Now, you may be forgiven for thinking that this is the West Bank and next to me is the apartheid wall. Well, actually, we're in the heart of Belfast, and this is called the Peace Wall. It runs through many communities, dividing the Catholic population with the Protestant population.
The first walls were built in 1969 to diffuse tensions between the two communities. But these walls do not guarantee safety. Both sides say they get attacked by bricks and other objects thrown over the wall.
Originally it was just wire, like over the years we built. It's actually been increased, the wire, you can see up there, since the peace process. So it's actually got bigger. And from my understanding, there's been actually a lot more peace lines actually built
And
since
why
peace line.
has it got bigger? Is it because people are throwing stuff?
Yes, over the years, there's been a lot of people have been throwing stones over. You can see the backs of the areas here. There's actually still drills.
Goodness, so this is
So
the
they
back
are
of people's
the people's
houses,
houses,
and they still need to fence their own
Yeah, they
windows
still fence
because
it.
they get, you know, all sorts
well,
of stuff.
stones, bricks and all things like that.
I mean, no one would be living...
No, they wouldn't want to live there.
Want to live like this.
But obviously they feel safer. I say you don't know what's going to come over.
And do you think this peace wall is a good thing to have?
Well, it's never a good thing, but whether it's a practical thing, that's a different answer. I know there's going to be a programme maybe to try and get them brought down, but whether that ever happens, I don't know. But I say nobody ever likes to see a divided community, but unfortunately the way things are, that's what's happening.
The police are out on duty in Belfast as a pro-British Protestant parade marches past the Catholic Church in a pro-Irish area. Sectarian music and anti-Catholic chants were made when the parade passed this area in 2012. The local Catholic community are out and are calling for respect.
The residents here feel that the people who come down in the march, they feel it's a sectarian march. It's nothing to do with people celebrating their culture. This is all to do about a supremacist march, you know, kind of in many ways aided through the area by the police, down past the church. I think the residents are here to say they actually have banners that say respect our community, and what they're trying to say is, you know, you're actually the Orange Order's welcome to go down these roads if they would engage in talks with the local residents, which they're refusing to do. So they're like pushing their way through an area without the acceptance of the local community.
The parade is organised by the Protestant Orange Order. The order was named after the 17th century English king, William of Orange. William was a Protestant, and in 1690 he defeated the Catholic King James II. The implications of that battle helped maintain Britain's rule and occupation over Ireland. And every year, thousands of pro-British citizens parade through Belfast to celebrate that victory.
It's both occupation, colonisation, and people in a false sense and place in society, where it's not a society of equals, it's a society of unequals. We have one group who are supremacist and above the other group, and what they really want to do is subjugate their people who should be their neighbours and their friends.
You know, religion in my country has always been used by those in power to keep us divided. I think that's probably relevant in terms of Israel and Palestine. The idea of setting up a state based on religion is automatically exclusive and discriminates, and that's not going to work, and it's not going to be a recipe for harmony or peace. But I suppose really all of that happened because the great powers of the West wanted their strategic bases in the strategic places. and it didn't matter who was being sacrificed.
With the process of the struggle in Palestine and with the suffering of the Palestinian people at the hands of the British Empire at the time, the people in Ireland can associate with, because they face the same thing. And the people of Ireland, they stand by their brothers and sisters in Palestine from that historical background, and they give support, because in suffering there is no color, religion, or even nationality. It's a humanity issue then.
From all the nations in Europe, I believe the nation that sympathises mostly to Palestine and which closely resembles Palestine is the Irish nation.
The sun beats down over bombed streets.
The Irish have inspired us to keep steadfast under occupation. They've been under British occupation and have struggled for their freedom. They've inspired us to resist the Israelis.
Begins the day in this troubled land. Another phase of struggle for the ordinary man. So begins another day in Palestine.
The Palestinian struggle of determination in Israeli prisons began through the Irish struggle in British prisons in the 1980s.
Palestine, will you be free? Palestine, Palestine.
We had not known that Ireland had faced such problems. We learned a lot by coming here. And we have learned that they have a lot of similarities with the way we live in Palestine.
Palestine, you'll be free. Palestine.
Whilst the flag of Palestine is flown in parts of the Irish community, on the other side, the flag of Israel is flown by some in the pro-British areas of the country.
Well, I think there's a sense of identity that if the Republican or Catholic community are flying Palestinian flags, then that mustn't be for the Protestant community, so they've picked the other side in it. There are people in Northern Ireland who are Christian Zionists, a bit like you'd find in America. They are a minority, but they would support Israel and believe that Israel's occupation is biblically driven.
Michael is a Protestant living in the north of Ireland. He says his involvement with the trade union movement helped him to understand the realities of the situation in the Middle East. He visited Palestine in 2010.
We stayed in Bethlehem, visited Jerusalem, went to Ramallah, to Nablus, Hebron, visited refugee camps and saw for ourselves what the occupation is about and the daily misery that's imposed on Palestinian people.
What's this diary about?
Well, it's a diary of the visit. It takes you through each day and where we went, and there is an overall sense of oppression. It's the fact that you have to pass through checkpoints to get into Jerusalem. You won't get in unless you've got a visa to be there. Religious, the Christian community couldn't get in unless they had a pass to get into Jerusalem, and it's a very difficult circumstances. It's a deliberate oppression.
I became interested first in 2008 following a trip to the West Bank. We stayed in Bethlehem, and it was just the day-to-day, it was just the grueling stuff around the occupation.
Anne visited the West Bank in 2008 and witnessed many injustices against the Palestinians. She is a Protestant herself and believes that more needs to be done to raise awareness of what is happening in Palestine.
And I just thought, this can't be right, this is wrong. And that was just one of the injustices that we saw every day, but we saw loads, and it grabbed me, it found a place in my heart, and then I kept tied to it. And I have been doing presentations, and quite a lot of the things I was saying were very basic, just about the human rights and the injustices, and a lot of people didn't know. And I also was able to say, quote from the 4th Geneva Convention, from international humanitarian law, so it wasn't me saying this is the law, but Israel continually flouts international law, and they're not penalised. So that's the issue. It's how we move that further up. There isn't enough awareness, there isn't enough understanding. They just think it's Arabs against Jews, and it's not. That's not what it is.
One of the things that amuses me is that the people flying this Israeli flag in the Protestant community wouldn't know that Yitzhak Shamir, his nom de guerre was Michael after Michael Collins, that the people who blew up the King David Hotel came into power in Israel and are mainstream politicians. These people here think they support Israel because Israel is tough on terrorism. They don't realise that Israel was born out of terrorism. To be fair, their churches know the Church of England has been critical of Israel and the occupation, and the churches in the region have produced the Caris Declaration in 2009 that calls the occupation a sin.
Yeah.
I'm not sure these people have had the benefit of reading that.
When you see the Palestinian dance, you cannot sometimes put your finger on it. This is a pure Palestinian or a Greek or some of it Irish or some of... Why? Because as a Holy Land, people from all around the world came and settled in Jerusalem. This culture is a symbol of resisting occupation. The Palestinian culture is similar. You'll see in Ireland, Ireland culture is beautiful, it's wide range, and it's kind of a culture full of energy. The Palestinian people anywhere in the world, you'll see them attached to every single symbol of parts of their culture, dance, poetry, religious stories, legends, all of that is in its own, create the identity which reject to be erased as they erased villages, cities. We wanted to stay alive, and we will never allow anybody in that part of the world to destroy the Palestinian culture. As long as we love our culture, which produces life and inject and induces life in our society in there, we're always going to win.
Palestine, you will be free. Palestine, Palestine, you'll be free. Palestine.